The rain was falling in soft drizzles the evening Eliza stepped into the little café on the corner street, her hands clutching the strap of her worn leather bag, her eyes scanning for the person she was supposed to meet. It was not a date in the usual sense. Her friend had insisted she take a chance and meet a kind-hearted man who was a single father, a father of twins to be exact. Eliza had smiled at the thought even though her heart was heavy from years of failed attempts at trusting men. She pushed the door open, the bell above chiming softly, and there he was sitting at a wooden table near the window. His head was bent slightly as he helped two small children draw on napkins, their laughter mixed with the gentle music playing overhead, and for some reason it made Eliza pause. The man looked up, dark hair slightly disheveled, a simple shirt and jeans, and eyes that held warmth rather than charm. His smile was not polished but genuine, and when he stood to greet her the little boy tugged his hand while the little girl giggled shyly. "You must be Eliza," he said softly, extending his hand. "I am Daniel, and these two are Lucas and Lily, my world in tiny shoes," he added with a sheepish grin. She shook his hand, her heart oddly steady, and bent to greet the twins, who looked at her with innocent curiosity. Dinner was not like the dates she had imagined before. There was no show of wealth, no grand gestures. Daniel spoke with ease about the children, about how Lily loved painting and how Lucas wanted to build airplanes one day. He did not talk about himself much, and Eliza sensed a story behind his eyes, a weight he carried quietly. She found herself listening more than speaking, watching how his hand brushed gently against his daughter's hair, how his son leaned against him without hesitation, and she felt warmth filling a place inside her she thought long abandoned. As the night grew darker, the rain still tapping on the windows, Eliza found herself laughing, truly laughing. For the first time in months, Daniel cracked simple jokes, the children shared little stories about their school, and soon she felt as though she had known them longer than an hour. When the evening ended, Daniel offered to walk her to the bus stop, holding an umbrella large enough to cover them both. The twins ran ahead, splashing in puddles while he slowed his steps beside her. "I hope this was not too unusual," he said gently. "I do not usually bring people into their world quickly, but something told me it was right." She met his eyes and nodded. Something about him felt safe, grounding. She thanked him for the night, and before stepping onto the bus she looked back at him standing there with his twins under the yellow streetlight, and a feeling stirred within her that she could not name. Over the next weeks their paths began to cross more often. Daniel would invite her for walks in the park where the children ran freely. He brought sandwiches he had made himself and a thermos of tea. He never pretended to be more than what he was, a simple father trying his best. There was no car waiting at the curb, only the bus rides he took with the children and the simple apartment he led them back to. Eliza never questioned it because his humility never seemed false. Still, sometimes when she looked at him she caught glimpses of something deeper, the way his voice shifted when he spoke about responsibility, the way his eyes flickered with thoughts he did not share. There were small mysteries he left untouched, yet Eliza found herself not pressing because she had fallen into the rhythm of his presence and the laughter of the children. One Saturday afternoon he asked her to join them on a visit to the zoo. The children were ecstatic, pulling her hands and dragging her from one enclosure to the next. Daniel walked beside her, quiet but attentive, carrying Lily. When she grew tired, lifting Lucas so he could see the giraffes, and Eliza felt like she was watching a picture of a family she had only dreamed of being part of. She caught herself smiling more than once when strangers assumed she was their mother. Later that day, as the sun dipped lower, they sat on a bench sharing ice cream. The children were sticky-faced but happy, and Daniel leaned back with a tired yet content sigh. He glanced at her, his lips curving slightly. "Thank you for being with us today, Eliza. They like you more than I expected." He laughed softly and she laughed with him. "Well, they are easy to like," she replied, but deep inside her chest a flutter began that she could not quiet. Days turned into weeks and her life began to feel different. She would leave work eager to meet them, eager to step into the little world Daniel had built, yet she never asked about his job or income. She assumed he worked somewhere ordinary, a laborer perhaps, or something modest. His clothes were plain, his home small, his routines simple, and none of it mattered because she valued the sincerity in his every gesture. Still, she wondered sometimes why his phone calls were hushed or why he disappeared for hours on certain days. She dismissed it as the struggles of a single parent who had to juggle many things at once. Her own life was not without struggles. She worked in an office for a large company. Though her role was humble, she filed reports, she answered phones, and she dreamed quietly of one day doing something greater. She never imagined that the world she belonged to and the world Daniel belonged to would one day collide in a way that would shake her heart completely. One morning her manager announced that the CEO of the company would be visiting the branch, an important man who had built the business from the ground up and rarely showed his face. Everyone rushed to prepare the office, polishing their words and their appearance. Eliza felt nervous but curious. She had only heard stories about him, that he was young yet sharp, successful yet private, and that his decisions had changed lives. She wondered what kind of man held so much power unseen. When the day came, she was arranging files when a quiet stir spread through the office. The elevator opened and she heard footsteps, steady and commanding. She turned and her breath froze. Daniel stood there in a tailored suit, his hair neatly styled, his presence radiating authority. The same Daniel who held Lily when she cried, the same Daniel who teased Lucas about eating vegetables, now stood as the CEO of the very company she worked for. Her hands trembled and she nearly dropped the papers. Her mind refused to believe it, but his eyes met hers, and for a fleeting moment she saw the man she knew behind the mask of power. His lips twitched as though he wanted to smile, but he held himself still before the others, addressing the staff with calm confidence. She listened, her heart racing, unable to reconcile the two images before her. When the meeting ended, she found herself avoiding his gaze, her chest tight with confusion. How could he have hidden this? How could he pretend to be poor when he had all this wealth? Why had he not told her? That evening she ignored his calls, her emotions swirling between betrayal and fear. She remembered every moment, every bus ride, every sandwich he had made by hand, and she wondered if any of it had been real. Her chest ached because she had not fallen for a CEO, she had fallen for a father of two who carried his children on his shoulders in the park. She wanted to believe that man still existed, but her trust wavered. The next day he appeared at her apartment uninvited, the twins holding his hands. Their smiles reached for her, but her eyes could not hide her hurt. Daniel looked at her quietly, his face stripped of the commanding presence she had seen in the office. He looked only like the man she had known all along, tired, hopeful, and afraid. "Eliza, we need to talk," he said softly, and in that moment she realized the truth was about to change everything. Eliza stood frozen, her fingers gripping the edge of the door while the twins tugged her dress, begging her to come outside and play. She forced a smile for them, though her eyes stayed locked on Daniel, who looked nothing like the untouchable CEO from the office. Instead, he looked vulnerable, almost afraid, as though she held the power to undo him. She let the children inside and stepped aside reluctantly, allowing him into her small living room. He sat on the edge of the sofa, his hands clasped together while she remained standing. "Why did you lie?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "I thought you were a simple man just doing your best for your children. I thought everything about you was honest." He lifted his eyes to hers and the pain in them nearly undid her. "I never lied, Eliza. I just never told you. I wanted someone to see me without the suit, without the wealth, without the name. The world has treated me differently since the company grew. No one looks at me without seeing what I own. You looked at me and only saw a father of two children, and for once I felt like a man, not a title." Her heart wavered because she remembered the way he had laughed in the rain with her, the way he held Lily when she was tired, the way he never tried to impress her with anything other than his sincerity. Yet the ache remained because secrets had been kept. "You could have trusted me," she whispered. "You could have told me before I walked into the office and saw you standing there as someone I did not recognize." Daniel rose slowly, his hands reaching for hers but stopping short. I was afraid if you knew the truth you would walk away before you even gave me a chance. You do not know how many people smile at me only because of what I can give them. I wanted you to see Daniel the father, not Daniel the CEO, and maybe that was selfish of me, but it was real. Every sandwich, every bus ride, every story with the twins was real, and I need you to believe that. Eliza turned away, her arms crossed against her chest. The twins peeked from the hallway, their faces confused. Sensing the tension, she forced herself to kneel and hug them, assuring them it was all right. They giggled, unaware of the storm inside her heart. Daniel watched in silence, his chest rising. With a sigh, he finally said, I will not pressure you, Eliza, but I will wait because I want you, not because I need someone to complete an image, but because you already complete something inside me. For days after he left, Eliza struggled. She went to work and avoided his office, though whispers spread quickly when people noticed the CEO's eyes following her. His reputation in the company was one of brilliance and decisiveness, yet she alone had seen his softer side, the one who chased after his children in muddy shoes. She could not deny the bond she had with them either, because Lily called her by name in her sleep and Lucas often asked when she would visit again. Her heart softened when one evening she found Lily outside her building holding a small crayon drawing. Daniel stood behind her looking uncertain. Lily held it out shyly. It is us, she said, her little voice full of pride. You, me, Daddy, and Lucas, you belong with us. Eliza could not hold back her tears. She knelt and hugged the girl tightly. Daniel said nothing, only watched with an expression that carried both hope and apology. From that moment Eliza allowed herself to see him again. They began to meet once more, though the air was tinged with fragility. Daniel took her to his home, this time not the small apartment but the estate he had kept hidden. The house was vast, with marble floors and wide windows, but when the children ran through its halls with laughter, it still felt warm. Daniel walked her through the rooms, explaining how empty it had felt before the twins filled it with life. He admitted that after their mother left he had been lost, drowning in success that meant nothing without someone to share it with. Eliza listened quietly, touched by the cracks in his armor. She began to realize that behind the wealth he was still the same man who wiped ice cream off Lucas's chin and tied Lily's shoelaces. The wealth did not erase his humanity, it only frightened her because she feared she would not belong in his world. But Daniel seemed to sense her worry, and he told her gently, Eliza, I do not want someone to fit into this house. I want someone to fit into our lives, and you already do. Weeks turned into months and the bond between them deepened. Eliza was no longer just a visitor, she was part of their family dinners, part of bedtime stories, part of weekend adventures. The office whispers no longer mattered because Daniel never flaunted their relationship in front of others. He kept it sacred, protecting her from the weight of his name. One evening he took her hand during a walk in the garden and told her quietly, you healed something I thought was broken forever. I need you to know that. But not everything was simple. Some board members of the company grew restless seeing their CEO involved with someone they considered beneath his status. Eliza overheard cruel remarks in the corridors, whispers that she was a gold digger, that she had trapped him. She cried in silence, fearing Daniel would suffer for choosing her. Yet when she tried to step away from him for his own sake, he refused. He stood before the board and told them firmly that his personal life was not a matter for discussion. That day Eliza realized just how much strength his love carried. One night after the twins were asleep, Daniel brought her into his study where papers and contracts lay scattered. He held a small velvet box in his hand, his fingers trembling more than she had ever seen. I built everything I have with my hands and my mind, he whispered, but none of it matters if I cannot build a life with you. I know the world might question us, I know you might still doubt me, but Eliza, will you be the mother to my children and the woman beside me for the rest of my life? Her breath caught, tears streaming down her face, because in that moment she saw not the CEO, not the wealthy man, but the same Daniel she had met in the café, the father of two children who simply wanted love. She nodded, unable to speak, and when he slipped the ring onto her finger, the weight was not of diamonds but of trust restored. Their wedding was small, held in the garden where the twins threw flowers into the air and giggled. Daniel looked at her as though she were the only one alive, and Eliza knew she had chosen not wealth, not status, but love. The whispers eventually faded because their happiness was louder than any rumor. She continued working, but now with purpose, inspired by him yet never overshadowed because he respected her dreams. Years later, when their children ran around their home filled with laughter, Eliza would remember the rainy evening she first walked into the cafe. She had fallen for a poor father of two, at least that was what she believed then, but the truth was she had fallen for the man he had always been, beneath the layers of power and secrets, and in the end that